And I love that intro music. Hello, everyone. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Wiebe from the Winnipeg Free Press. Together, we are Kenny and Renny. Renny's got the comb over going on here. Not too late to fix that. This is the Kenny and Renny post-game show after a game, ladies and gentlemen, that I think gave me more faith in the Winnipeg Jets, more belief in the Winnipeg Jets than any of their three previous wins before this. I know some of you are going to be like, what are you talking about? They lost the game, and those other games were wins, and blah blah. And Renny sees beyond those things, folks. And Renny's going to tell you about it. And you know what? Why don't you hop in my shiny brand new Toyota that I got from Jim Pattison Toyota on Regent, and we'll take the opening drive together, and I'll tell you why I take faith away from a victory like this, or sorry, from a loss like this. And basically, I can understand why some people would be frustrated. I got a very frustrated text from one of the viewers through the second period, and it was understandable. The Winnipeg Jets looked, from going to the first period where they get scored on really early, and then all of a sudden they kind of I feel like they take over that first period. Then to the second period where it just looked like for the first 15 minutes of that period, the Winnipeg Jets didn't belong in the same rink as the Carolina Hurricanes. After that, I start to feel like, okay, remember, I've used this term a lot, inevitability. And it's what we saw from the Jets last year so many times during their President's Trophy season. Just this feeling of inevitability, doing the right things repeatedly over and over and over again. You thought it was going to end up in the Jets' victory. It felt to me like that. Now, I haven't been wrong with this feeling very often. I'll tell you why. In the end, I think things were wrong. But it felt to me started to get that feeling of inevitability, right? Like right towards the end of the game, even after they ice the puck and the Jets get the puck and they come back into the zone, they get an unbelievable look, right? Like Mark Scheifele passes the puck over to Jonathan Toews. It's there. Two players that, probably just aren't used to playing with each other. So Jonathan Toews is probably just a little bit out of the spot that guys who've played with Mark Scheifele a lot, would be in. He's just a foot over. This is how the NHL works. It moves at such a fast pace. So much of what these players do is instinctual, and these two players just haven't locked in yet. This is one of those learning opportunities. The next time there's an opportunity like that, if there is a next time, my guess is Jonathan Toews is going to be right in the right spot to put that in and send that one to overtime. But just kind of the spirit that I saw from the Winnipeg Jets of fighting their way back into that game. Now, I'm going to say this. You will get talking about Nick Ehlers, and I don't want to steal that part of the buffet because that's the juiciest, tastiest part of today's buffet, and we know that Ken is going to gorge himself on that. But I still contend that one of the reasons the Winnipeg Jets are not the comeback team that you saw last year is because of the loss of Nikolaj Ehlers. Now, yes, the Winnipeg Jets pushed a lot in that game, and yes, Scott Arniel touched on it, that he basically thought a lot of that changed because of how the Carolina Hurricanes stopped pressing the way that they had the entirety of the game. You want to know why they didn't? Well, take a look at all the odd man rushes that the Jets created opportunity and success off of. I take it that the coaching staff of the Carolina Hurricanes were a little scared off by that and then basically allowed the Jets out of their zone. You know me, I don't think that's the way that you play the Winnipeg Jets. I think if you're going to beat the Jets, you typically need to cram it down their throat, because if you let them come down rolling on you, it's often going to end in a victory for the Winnipeg Jets. What do I know? The Carolina Hurricanes won that game. So clearly Rod the Bod knew exactly what he needed to do on this night. But so many opportunities by the Jets still, though. If you notice, and you'll see what I'm talking about here, especially if you've got your PVR, if you recorded the game, go back and look at the last number of the minutes of the game. And you'll notice that the Winnipeg Jets are in the offensive zone, but they're battling for the puck on the boards. So often they're battling for the pucks. It's not what we've seen from the Jets in the past, where they've all got their backs to the boards and the team that they're playing is collapsed to the middle of the ice. Again, That's what Nick Ehlers was brilliant at. His speed back. He got you your zone entry. He backed off the defense. He got everyone set up. And now the Jets could push. The Jets just were not, again, able to get into that position as often as they did last season. And that inevitability that I talked about, that inevitability comes from creating more and more and more opportunity for yourself, doing the right things over and over and over and over again. There's just not as much opportunity for the Jets to score, to tie games up this year as there was last year, because they don't have that secret weapon to get into their perfect scoring position. I will say this. One thing that has kind of, sometimes you adapt or die kind of thing. And one of the ways I think the Jets are doing a brilliant job of adapting is, I kind of touched on it, how good was Mark Scheifele off the rush tonight? Just unbelievable the way that these guys are able to get passes to each other. Kyle Connor set him up with a gorgeous opportunity. Mark Scheifele, like I'd said, sets up Jonathan Toews with a gorgeous opportunity. The Jets, in the lack of time being set up like I talked about, which was their bread and butter last season, having their backs against the wall in the offensive zone where all the opposition is collapsed to the middle, that's prime for them. That's what they want. If you see them doing that towards the end of the game, and they're trying to push and come back and score to tie or win a game, that's prime A position for them. They're getting the looks they want if they're doing that. It seems to me that in the absence of having those opportunities this year, because of the loss of Nick Ehlers, in this guy's opinion, they're doing a pretty darn good job of trying to score off the rush and add some sizzle in a place they maybe didn't need to last year. But they're going where they can to try and make this happen. I thought it was a valiant effort tonight. Regardless, this is a game. I've talked about this. You've heard me say that the degree of difficulty was clearly up on this night. There were parts of that game it looked like the Winnipeg Jets were not going to be able to follow. I liked what I saw from them in the fight that they showed in the last 5 minutes of the second period, where I thought they started turning the tide. And yes, they allow a power play goal at the beginning of the third period. Rough night for the power play. I got to say, for a team that I think was tied for last place, Christian O'Mell from CJOB was telling me, tied for last, the Carolina Hurricanes, in power play percentage. Regardless, the Jets, after that point, score quickly, take over the game. There was the push here. There was the spirit of the Winnipeg Jets that existed last year. Are they executing like the Winnipeg Jets of last year? No, they're not, but they're getting closer, and they know what they're supposed to look like, and the spirit of getting there does not seem to be dimmed. That's my take on the whole thing, and that, of course, is the Jim Pattison Toyota on Regent opening drive here, folks. And let me tell you, one second here. This November, it's time to Toyota at Jim Pattison Toyota on Regent. Finance the 2025 Tacoma truck from 5.69% with up to a 1% loyalty rate reduction and a $1,750 accessory credit. But hurry, the offer ends December 1st. Visit Jim Pattison Toyota on Regent for a test drive today, and let us know if you head down there, because I like spending time down there. They've got a gorgeous new building there, lots of really great vehicles in there to have a look at. I'd love to see you down there, folks. Okay, time to bring in the man with the best music in the business. Here comes Kenny, folks. Kenny, I'm not one to talk as we're almost 10 minutes into the show here, but lots to talk about on this day. So you're going to have to be very, very efficient with how you handle the buffet on this one. But take a look and tell me, before we do that, I just took a look at that suit that you're rocking. And my goodness, Kenny, once again, shooting it out of the park. I'm mixing up my analogies. I'm back to baseball. I thought we left that behind. But hey, if you want to mix analogies and shoot it out of the park, you know what to do, folks. Head on down to Vittorio Rossi on Corydon Avenue. Walk in, loudly proclaim Kenny and Renny sent you. Ask for Frankie and the boys, and they will do you up right. I promise you that. Ken, take it away.
Yeah, yes, sir. I mean, interesting game for sure. We spent a lot of time, in the last stretch of time saying the Jets are sort of, playing at the level of their opponent. And I think they did the same thing today, except they played against a much better opponent. So I would say there was a lot of encouraging signs out of the game. I mean, second period, I'm with you. The Jets were not really in it in a lot of ways. I mean, they got a little bit frustrated. I mean, we'll get into Gabe Velarde, what he thought in a minute, but just the Jets were sort of, it was reminding me of like some of the games against the LA Kings. I know, again, this is totally two different styles in terms of one team, like in your face, just sort of water bugs shooting from everywhere. But the way that the LA Kings have had success against the Jets is sort of forcing them to be an impatient team. I thought the Carolina Hurricanes did a great job of that in the second period, sort of forcing a bunch of transition turnovers, which were costly for the Winnipeg Jets. Overall, their third period was excellent. And Sean, this is the wild thing. I mean, scoring chances, the high dangers were wild. 9-1 for the Jets in the game. Now, I don't see how the Jordan Staal second goal high tip is not a high danger chance. I mean, it is a redirection from the slot. I mean, for me, that's plotted in the wrong area. But regardless, even if that's a high danger chance, it's still 9-2 in the game. I mean, Brandon Bussey looked behind him. I think he might have looked behind himself 3 or 4 different times in the third period with various shots from Mark Scheifele and others. Cole Perfetti also. Now, again, I don't think it was a perfect game by the Jets, but I think that if they play that style for the next 16 to 20 games, they're going to have a lot more success than struggles. Now, they hit the 20-game mark with a record of 12-8. We're going to dig into that a little bit more. Nikolaj Ehlers' return was what was expected, I think. Maybe a little bit more booing pre-video than I maybe expected, but we knew that there would be some folks in the fan base, Sean, that were sour that he left town, even though he said a bunch of nice things that he means on the way out. Some folks are sort of, if you're with us, you're with us, and if you're not, then peace out. But otherwise, I thought that the fans did an excellent job on the tribute after the video. And no doubt Nikolaj was going to be emotional. We knew this. I spoke with him almost 2 weeks ago in Toronto. He talked about being nervous and having emotions, and he showed genuine, gratitude in his clapping for the fans after the standing ovation. I think that was excellently done. And then Nikolaj Ehlers in kind of vintage Ehlers fashion, Sean. I mean, the look off, we've seen this play before. I mean, looks the player off, finds the backdoor seam for the 1T, and there's Svechnikov banging it home for, at the time, an insurance marker, and in the end, game-winning goal. Impressive stuff. I mean, Lou Perlin, Carolina owned the second period. I agree, but I just was saying that at 5-on-5, the Jets were fine. Now, giving up that shorty was absolutely bone-crushing in a lot of ways for the Jets after building that 2-1 lead. But, I mean, overall, again, this was a big news day, Sean. We know this, and for folks who missed it, I'm sure most of you have caught up, but the Jets will be without their MVP, Connor Hellebuck, for the next 4 to 6 weeks, and that means Eric Comrie will get his chance to carry the mail. So we'll dig in more to that, but that's a big development here today.
Yeah, let me just close the book on talking about Nikolaj Ehlers here because I think Sammer 77347 says it all here. It says never realized how frustrating Ehlers is to play against. This was like, honestly, Ken, to see him playing for another team and to see the Jets react to that speed kind of just really opened my eyes a little bit, because the Jets usually handle those kind of things extremely well. You've seen over the years how much better the Jets have got against guys like Connor McDavid, right? Like, remember seeing Neil Pionk in Connor McDavid's kitchen all of these times, and you can just see the Jets have got better and better at handling that. And this just gives you an idea of, like, I think a lot of the folks out there are being like, my goodness, this is what teams have faced against the Jets for a long time. When I say about what I think how losing Nikolaj Ehlers has kind of changed the Jets, and I think so far quarter of the way through the season, the amount of times that the Jets won their ways, scored their ways back into games last year compared to this year on average, I think this is one of these Renny takes that is aging like the good old evergreen there. But it was fascinating to see just like the like how dangerous he looked. And for a guy, Ken, who before the game had said to us, I had asked him basically how he thinks the process of him fitting on his new team is going. And he admitted, like, it's been tricky. It's been tricky to get in with this team and kind of figure out the system, fall into the system. I've said this before, same thing with the Jets. You got to find your way into that system, play it properly first, and then build on top of it. We know Nick Ehlers has a skill set that he can get stuff done, but right now he's not able to kind of get it done the way that he clearly wants to be doing it, and yet was dangerous all night. And Ken seemed just like a step away from breaking things open time and time again, and in the end does so with a just sickening no-look pass, setting up what turns out to be the game winner. I wonder how often this happens, because remember, Pierre-Luc Dubois helped spurn the Jets when he returned for the first time with LA, scored a goal in a game that, if I remember correctly, LA won. So this is another example.
Trouba had a big goal in New York against or maybe it was here against the Jets actually too.
There you go. The first time was the first game of the year in New York, was it?
Sorry, in New York, yes.
Yeah.
Game winner, I think, too.
Yes. And if I remember correctly, after that, they went on to play New Jersey or something like that. Brossois had a really good game. There was a tiny little moment in time where people thought there was a goaltending controversy there.
Because he started the third game also. He started games 2 and 3.
Exactly. There you go.
Anyways, just quickly, Sean, wrapping up Ehlers. I mean, Brind'Amour said it would take, he said from his own personal experience, which he has the same experience from coming to the Hurricanes as a player from Philadelphia, where he was the captain. He said it took him 1.5 years to feel comfortable, and he won't be surprised if it takes Ehlers that long, even though he likes the signs of him kind of cranking things up. That's 9 of 10 games with at least a point. Anyway, so I thought it was super interesting that Rod Brind'Amour mentioned that this morning. And yeah, I mean, you're bang on. I mean, when I talked to Ehlers a couple Sundays ago in Toronto, he was saying the same things. I mean, it's not an easy system to get used to, and that shows. But as you mentioned, I mean, tonight he only had 1 shot on net, but 7 shot attempts. And it seemed like every time he was on the ice, he was dangerous with Logan Stankoven and Jackson Blake. I mean, I love the look of that line. I mean, again, I think that he could work great with Seth Jarvis, but it wasn't working. In that second line role. Again, we've seen what Nikolaj Ehlers does when he's on the second line, right? Yeah. I mean, we have firsthand knowledge of that. How about let's put that comment back up? That's Flame and Comfort or no?
Yeah. Before you do that, I just want to say you found Rod the Bod's comments is interesting. Like, I find Samer 77347. This is a really great take just to kind of understand. I think a lot of Jets fans got a real good understanding of how tough it was for the Winnipeg Jets to play against the Winnipeg Jets when he was there, and what a weapon the Winnipeg Jets had in that player. So that is your Flame and Comfort hot take of the game. Good kind of hot take. Brought to you by Flame and Comfort, Manitoba's premier supplier of fireplaces, wood stoves, inserts, and everything hearth related. After 50 years heating up your world, Flame and Comfort has moved to 1465 St. James Street. And when you get down there, you will find it is one of the most impressive showrooms in Western Canada. You don't need your hot takes to keep that warm feeling inside, folks. You can visit Flame and Comfort. They will take care of it for you. Okay, Ken, you want to get straight away to the Hellebuyck situation here? It's the news of the day.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get into the game a little more, but I mean, this is massive news for the Winnipeg Jets. And yes, we understand it is a minor procedure. I mean, arthroscopic surgery, this is a scope, just going in to clean up some things that have been bothering Hellebuyck for quite some time. I had someone come up to me and say, oh, well, this is obviously from the playoffs, and why wouldn't they get it taken care of? Well, no, this is more of a recent development. I think it popped up in training camp based on the conversations that were had today. It was starting to bother Hellebuyck a little bit more. We know this week Michael Hutchinson was filling in practice, and that kind of raised our eyebrows slightly. But given Hellebuck's workload, it wasn't that big of a deal until it was. I mean, this is obviously during Connor Hellebuck's tenure. I mean, outside of the year that he came up when Andrei Pavlik was injured and then went back to the Moose, we haven't seen Connor Hellebuyck have any issues with durability. He's barely even missed consecutive starts, as we just kind of hinted at. So, I mean, this is a massive opportunity for Eric Comrie, yes, but the fact that the Jets are going to be without their MVP for essentially up to a quarter of the season, that's big news here, no doubt about it.
Here's one thing I wanted to say about this. It is insane to like. I talked about it on Sportsnet today. Like, to not know what this team looks like without Connor Hellebuck, to kind of have no idea what it's going to look like, because the guy has been so durable that they basically haven't had to understand what life without Connor Hellebuck is like since 2016. Like, come on. Like, it is crazy for a goaltender to play at the elevated level that Connor Hellebuck has for as long as he has. But to do so without really, with the workload that he's got, without his body breaking down, is just absolutely nuts. So it's going to be interesting to see this here and how it shakes out. But I was going to say this. This is an opportunity for all the people who've said these conversations and, kind of to put their money where their mouth is. Now, I wanted to bring up this one comment because it's close. It's close to what I wanted to say about this. It's a comment not by Scott Hayward, who says, now we will see if Sean Reynolds' theory is correct about the Jets' defensive systems. Personally, I think he is. I will ride or die with you, brother. He's right there. And what he's talking about is Connor Hellebuck being out. Now, I'll say this. That's not exactly how I would put this, because we've talked about it on this show and Renny's kind of led the charge on this. The Jets and their speed and their ability to get to their system, the Jets, even tonight, is as much faith as I have after seeing them do that. The Winnipeg Jets are not what they were last year, right? So when I had the conversations that I did quite often last year, and I thought that there's too often that the Winnipeg Jets as a team defensively was not getting the credit it deserved, and it was so many people out there, and Ken, this, journalists would come in from outside of town and ask these questions to both Rick Bowness before this and then Scott Arniel, and you could tell it would piss them off that they'd ask the question, is this just a team with a great goaltender? And it's like, guys, watch the games. Like, this is a brilliant defensive team. The Jets are not there right now. So it's not as simple as just saying, well, now if they fail under Comrie, it's all Comrie's fault, because the Winnipeg Jets are there right now. Eric Comrie is not playing behind what the Winnipeg Jets were last year, but I do think they're rounding it to form, and it's a closer comparison to make compared to what it was last year. But I will say this, given the fact that there is the degree of difficulty is going up for the Winnipeg Jets. You saw it tonight. Their schedule starts to change from this point out. They don't have so many of the bottom teams in the league. They're starting to face more challenges going forward. So the degree of difficulty is about to go up for the Winnipeg Jets. And at the start of this day, when we found out that Connor Hellebuck was going to be out of the lineup, the Jets had 24 points. Yes.
24, yeah.
24 points, and they were tied for 9th place. Now, they started out in 3rd place. They were tied for 9th place, and then one of those teams has surpassed them. The Minnesota Wild won on this night. Now they have 26 points. They kicked the Jets out of 3rd place, and the Jets now sit in 8th place. They've got games in hand on most teams around them, so it's not it doesn't, I don't think it's exactly what it looks like. But I will say this, when Connor Hellebuck was hurt, the Winnipeg Jets were tied for 9th place in points in the West. All of you people out here who have given very, very little credit to the Winnipeg Jets as a team and defensively and what they've done for Connor Hellebuck in front of them, all you people, I want you to understand this now. Unless the Winnipeg Jets end up, by the time Connor Hellebuck comes back, if they don't end up below the playoff line and probably fairly well below the playoff line, your theory gets blown out the window. Because if the Winnipeg Jets survive and actually, fight their way up the standings through this without Connor Hellebuck, when they basically started tied for 9th place, if you are right that this team is just nothing without Connor Hellebuck, then the only way that is proven is if the Winnipeg Jets end up well below the playoff line by the time he gets back, because your theory that the Jets can't survive without him relies on the idea that they will fall apart without him. So this is it. This is the receipt time. You check your receipts right now, because for all the people who've said, no, it's not the Jets, it's not anything, it's all Connor Hellebuck, then a team that is about to go to a higher degree of difficulty in the season, and that basically started at the playoff line. If they don't fall out of it, everything that you've been saying is poppycock, Ken.
It's an aggressive take. I mean, I'm not. I
don't think it's aggressive at all. I think it's
sure.
Obvious.
I mean,
obvious.
The Jets were in the playoffs by points percentage. Now, I don't know. I think that's diminishing Hellebuck's importance to a degree.
How is that no, it's doing the opposite. It's what I'm saying is that if Hellebuck's I'm doing the opposite of diminishing his importance. I'm saying to the folks out there who have said this team can't survive without Connor Hellebuck, if they're right, the Winnipeg Jets will end up well below the playoff line by the time he gets back, because the theory has been for a long time, it's not the Winnipeg Jets, it's not how they play defense, it's Connor Hellebuck. So if that's true, a Winnipeg Jets team that now sits tied in points for 9th place should not be able to survive without him, based on the theories of a huge chunk of this fan base.
Yeah, I don't quite see it that distinct.
How do you see it, Ken? Here's your opportunity to tell.
Well, no, I think two things can be true. I think the Jets got a lot better defensively the last 3 years, 2 specifically. And in the first quarter, again, we don't agree on this. I don't think the Jets played particularly sound defensively for the majority of the first 20 games. So,
right.
And Scott Arniel agrees. He basically said today, flat out, that in the last 4 or 5 games, they've looked like themselves. And I would agree with that, but that's 5 out of 20. So I think the Jets are rounding into better form defensively. So they're better equipped to handle the second quarter of the year, whether it's Comrie or Thomas Milic or whatever else they get sorted out here.
I don't think you're picking up on the point that I'm making. For years now, there's been people out there who've been saying the Winnipeg Jets
not
aren't
all or nothing. No, we know that.
Team.
Sean, you and I know that we've been talking about this for years. I think that number has diminished.
I know you know it. I know that you know that.
I think that that number has diminished to a very small level, but that doesn't mean that it can't be a big blow for the Jets to. I mean, even if the Jets, I mean, what are we calling survival in this situation?
I'm
500 hockey, or?
I'm saying it has to be a big blow.
Okay,
that's exactly.
But it doesn't mean they have to fall below the playoff line for it still to not. I mean, they can manage it okay, but not suddenly be 20 points below the line, right?
Right. If they handle it okay, Ken, it would suggest that the Winnipeg
doesn't
Jets
diminish his importance, though.
I never said it diminished their importance. I said that if it's true that Connor Hellebuck is what drives this team entirely, there should be a significant tail off. Should there not?
I don't know. I mean, we talked about this last year. I mean, even when Brissois was here, Sean. I mean, the numbers were very similar.
I know you like to ride the fence, but now you're playing both sides of the fence here, Ken. What's happening here?
I just don't think that it's necessarily, there can be some middle ground is what I'm trying to say. That's all I'm saying.
Right. BA Split says Renny is right. Examples on Brissois, Riddick, and Combs wasn't oh man, when he left to play with Buff comes, I don't know. I can't read that. Sorry, I forgot my glasses. I'll stop at the Rennie's right part. That was my favorite part of that. Let's get to
quickly.
Yeah.
What is surviving for the Jets? How do you think? What are they going to look like in the next 20 games? That's
the question. That's where we have to be. So it's again. So you give me your take. Connor Hellebuck's importance to the Winnipeg Jets is what, and without him being there, what do you expect life without Connor Hellebuck to look like, and where do you think they end up by the time he comes back?
Sure,
that's the juice.
Right on. No, so we've talked about the things. They didn't have anyone like Dylan Sandberg. They didn't have anyone like Kyle Connor. They didn't really have anyone like Mark Scheifele. For me, this is easy. This is the biggest injury blow the Jets have had in the last decade, maybe ever, outside of Dustin Byfuglien for me. This is their biggest loss of a player. Now, that's not to say they're going to fall flat on their face. I don't think that. But I think this is even more significant than losing their best shutdown D-man or losing their best goal scorer or losing their top center. Even though I think that Eric Comrie is a competent goaltender, which I've said all along, the Jets are still, Adam Lowry said it best, they're without the best goalie in the world, and there's room for debate with that. I get it. But this is the biggest blow that they've...
I don't think there is, but go on.
As in he isn't, or...
No, as in he is. I don't think there's a debate. He's got he's the Hart Trophy winner in the back-to-back Vezina trophies.
Exactly. So this is their biggest blow they've had to deal with on an injury front. I mean, we've never even talked about it before because we didn't think it would be happening.
So you've said it's a big blow. What does Ken Wiebe think that blow is going to look like? Tell us what it looks like in their play and how you think it plays out.
I think if they go 500 in the next 20 games, I think it is a success, to be perfectly honest. That's not to say that they couldn't do better, but I think that they're a 500 team without him.
Okay, so a 500
and they might be better, but...
And where do you think that puts them, Ken?
If the Jets are 500, it will put them right where they are now, right in the thick of the wild card chase.
No, because they're a 600 team right now. A 500 team is going to put
they'll
them...
still be in the wild card chase.
They'll be in the mix, but they're probably 500. I would suggest puts them 6 to 8 points out of the playoffs. That's a significant amount below the playoff line. So there you go. Like that's all I'm saying. So you think what I'm saying that I think a lot of people out there think, that without Connor Hellebuyck, you just said it, the Winnipeg Jets are a 500 hockey club without Winnipeg Jets. That's where you think that is. And there's nothing wrong with that answer. And a lot of people would look and say, you lose the best goalie in the world. I'm not arguing that. The best goalie in the world just went out of the Winnipeg Jets lineup. What happens now is the question. You believe they're a 500 hockey club with Eric Comrie as their starting goaltender. I don't believe that. I think that they're going to do better than 500. My guess is they're going to be somewhere around 580 win percentage or something like that. I think they're going to find themselves just above or just below the playoff line when Connor Hellebuyck comes back. And I think, but the whole purpose of me saying this is one of those things where people say things that are unprovable, right? Well, he's this, and the Winnipeg Jets, they won 2 Jennings trophies, but they won the Jennings trophies because of Connor Hellebuyck. Now that is being put to the test. If people are saying that the Winnipeg Jets were the best team in the NHL and it was their goaltender that was doing it when it came to being defensive, then without that guy, the results should not be there. And it's even, this is like running a race and giving someone a head start, because the Jets aren't what they were the last couple of years defensively. We've already pointed that out. We've already suggested that. Even with that happening, I still think that they go about 580 without the player, because I think the Winnipeg Jets, and I think tonight was another example of it, a team that came in, outplayed them for large swaths of the game. They're still good at shutting down shooting lanes. Does their defense look as good as it did last year? I don't.
Tonight it did.
It does. No, well, not in the second period. I thought they got owned in the second period, but they do a good
one
job.
High danger chance in the game at 5-on-5.
Well, they didn't carry a lot of the play, but to your point, the Winnipeg Jets, like I'd said, I think they shut down shooting lanes. I think that they shut down passing lanes, even if they're not carrying the puck. So we've exhausted the topic. We can move on from it, but I'm glad that we've got something written down on paper. We've got receipts. We've had receipts printed out on where we think this goes. I wanted the audience to know they're challenged on this. When you're saying these comments about this, then that means in the absence of that player, what you've basically been saying for years, this team is this because of this guy. When you remove that guy, they've got to be something different, is all I'm saying. It's got to be different, considering what people have been saying. Anyway, and we'll see. It's going to play out tonight. I thought was not an example of that, because I thought Eric Comrie was really good in that game. I actually thought that he won the Sean Reynolds Award for the better of the 2 goaltenders in that game. I did think, Ken, at the beginning of that game when he starts out, what did it remind me of? It reminded me of Connor Hellebuck in the playoffs last year. Remember when Connor Hellebuck was struggling in the playoffs? And it was like, well, the last thing he can do, the last thing he can do is let in an early goal. And it was like clockwork. Every game he was giving up an early goal. You would have said, and if we were doing analysis on a panel, you and I beforehand, we would have said, well, what Eric Comrie needs to do is he just needs to have a good first period and then walk out, boom, first shot on net. It's in the back of the net. It looked like it was going to start rough, but other than that, and honestly, that's a great goal. Defensively, it's probably not the best played defense by Dylan Samberg on that, who gets crossed, and then that becomes part of when you bring the puck from one side of the fence to the other. All of a sudden, it's there. When the shot gets off, that's hard for a goaltender to stop. It's his job. He got beat. Simple as that. But there's a lot of the goals in that game I don't think that he had much of a chance on.
Yeah, agreed.
And I thought that Eric Comrie gave the Winnipeg Jets a chance. If this was Connor Hellebuck, we would be saying, hey, at some point he said no more going in, and he gave the Winnipeg Jets a chance to win that game tonight.
Yeah, no doubt. And again, I think that Eric Comrie can handle things well. And again, for the record, I said 500 would be surviving. I don't think there'll be 6 or 8 points out of the playoffs. I think they'll be right around a wild card spot. But yeah, I mean, Comrie's going to have to play well, and so is Thomas Milic. I mean, this is a fact. I mean, the Jets have back-to-backs next weekend. Sean, you'll be covering it in Nashville. And the Jets have a back-to-back the following week where they play the Buffalo Sabres at home on Friday and play the Edmonton Oilers on Saturday. So I think there will be which games is he getting? I mean, I would expect he's getting his debut against Nashville, and then I'll be curious to see who gets Buffalo and who gets Edmonton. I mean, that's an awfully big ask of a guy who would be making his second start playing the Edmonton Oilers, even though they're obviously in a general malaise to start the year. I think it'll be interesting.
Look, see, Kenny's water bottle's already. Kenny's water bottle, who's never written a comment that is not a joke, is clearly, I've touched a nerve here. He says, no, it doesn't have to be different with or without Hellebuck, while at the same time, Hellebuck being the most important factor, it isn't about a single variable. This is someone who's not willing to back up with it. Now that he's put his money where his mouth is, he wants to pick up his money and run from the table. I'm not a gambler.
I don't like throwing away money, Sean.
I know the rules. I know the rules. You don't put your money down on the table and pick it back up, Kenny's water bottle. Come on, man. What are you thinking? That's pristine roofing wake up territory, right?
I think sure. There you go.
And Rick a wake up call here at 1-204-981-6289. He's the guy you want down at your place for all your roofing, siding, and exterior needs. You can also call Pristine Roofing directly at 204-237-7663. Give your home the Pristine Roofing and Siding wake up call. You will be glad you did, as I'm hoping Kenny's water bottle is glad I just gave him the wake-up call so that he can get back on track. He usually performs well in the chat room, and then he
under
just
pressure,
flat on his face with that one. Poor Kenny's water bottle.
Man.
Brad Lambert, let's just chat on that before we kind of get back to the game, because there's these outlines.
Well, lay it out for you. I mean, you asked Scott O'Neill about it. You start, and then I'll go.
Well, one thing that I've always really admired about Scott Arniel with stuff like this is, so when you're asking a question like this, these are reports that are out there, right? It's not, Scott Arniel hasn't come out and confirmed these reports. Kevin Cheveldayoff hasn't confirmed these reports. A coach in that situation, and a lot of coaches would hide behind the idea that there's not a full-on confirmation with that. And then, so when I ask that question, I address the reports, but I turn it and say it's about this, and what I use as an example that we know the Jets have gone through, and Logan Stanley, who at one time had wanted out, wanted a trade, and has got on the other side of that, and now is a useful and increasingly valuable piece for the Winnipeg Jets. A couple of years ago, a lot of people wouldn't have seen this coming. Never mind just in his play, but in the idea that people thought that the sweaters, people were tugging on the threads and the sweater was starting to fall apart, and Logan Stanley was going to be out of here because he was unhappy. The Jets fixed that. The Jets coaching staff is a huge part of fixing that. So I'd asked, I premised the idea that these reports were out there. I said, you've gone through the process of bringing a young guy back into the fold. What's the responsibility of the coaches in this situation when it comes to handling young guys who clearly want opportunities in the NHL, opportunities that are extremely hard to come by with teams like the Winnipeg Jets, who are in win now mode and clearly prioritize veteran savvy, right? And he didn't duck the question. He dove right into it. And one of the things that I think the Winnipeg Jets have always done really, really well, and I think a lot of it started out at the beginning, just being a town of Winnipeg that a lot of players wanted to escape. Clearly, and we got to talk about Adam Lowry signing as well, Ken. Clearly, that has changed, right? Because the Winnipeg Jets have become one of the best teams in the NHL at retaining their stars and keeping guys around. So that part of it has changed. But even when you have these little kind of car crashes like you had with Logan Stanley, you've had it with Ville Heinola, who's still here in the fold. You're having it now with Brad Lambert. One of the things I think the Winnipeg Jets do entirely as an organization. I thought Scott Arniel was just, and they did this before Scott Arniel was here. They continue to do it. And he now becomes an extension of this philosophy that the Winnipeg Jets have that I just think works so well. Like basically it's like, yeah, hey, all three of those players were really upset when we set them down. And yes, they want these opportunities. And I understand that. One thing I always appreciated about Scott Arniel, he did it with Nikolaj Ehlers when he decided to leave. Scott Arniel was a player. He knows what it's like to go from one team to another team. He knows what it's like to be a player and have to follow opportunity, sometimes chase opportunity. And sometimes if you feel those opportunities aren't coming, he understands the frustration of not getting those opportunities. So he addressed it, talked about that, and just basically said, I'm operating under the assumption that Brad Lambert is going to be a Winnipeg Jet for a long time. And this is what we want from them, from these players. We don't necessarily want them to be a Winnipeg Jet tomorrow. We want them to be a Winnipeg Jet for 15 years going on forward, a long time from now. You've heard this talk from them before. And of course you've heard this talk because it's a pattern that I'm talking about. But if I'm Brad Lambert and I want to be mad, and he probably does want to be mad, and I get it. I get being a young guy, and I get that it's frustrating to look around other teams in the league and say, I bet I could play for that team right now, or that team, or that team. Why can't I play for this one? The reason you can't is because the Winnipeg Jets are a contender. And listen, there's room for debate. I'm not saying there's not. There's room for debate that the Winnipeg Jets should be going younger in certain spots and then maybe, like trying to find that balance. But this is what the Winnipeg Jets are choosing to do. It's not because they dislike Brad Lambert. It's because this is what they're prioritizing right now. And I just think if I'm Brad Lambert and I want to be angry, and I think he does want to be angry, and I don't have any problem with him wanting to be angry, players should believe in themselves. They should push. They should fight to get to where they want to go. And sometimes that fight can get a little bit negative. But the fact of the matter is, Scott Arniel is leaving the door open for Brad Lambert to walk back in and, have him pat him on the back and say, hey, I know things were tough there. We're glad you're still here. And what that does is it means that if the Jets don't move him, he comes back in and could be a great player for the Jets for a long time. And you and I in the 17th or 18th season of Kenny and Renny will look back and be like, hey, do you remember when Brad Lambert wanted to trade? And I'll be like, oh, Ken, that never happened. And you'll be like, no, for sure it did. I've got the receipt right here. And you'll pull it out of your wallet.
It'll be in my pocket.
But what it also does is it means that while they are leaving that option for him to return, it makes him a more valuable asset to trade because like Rutger McGroarty, the Winnipeg Jets didn't panic. They held on to it. Elliot Friedman discussed it in 32 Thoughts and I thought laid it out really well. The Winnipeg Jets do a good job. You are not getting Brad Lambert unless the Winnipeg Jets feel they're getting equal value. And Kevin Cheveldayoff seems to show time and time again he knows how to get equal value. So this isn't a freebie. A lot of other teams, God, Ken, I was looking at Askarov backstopping the San Jose
Sharks in November.
And I'm watching and I'm thinking, how the heck did Nashville let this guy go for so little, right?
Signed Saros to an extension.
Right.
He said he had to be a number one.
But it doesn't mean that guy doesn't have value. and that you don't hold on for a certain amount of value. They were like, okay, well, we don't need him as much. That makes him less value. So less valuable to us. So let's move him for less value. The one thing the Winnipeg Jets do is they're like, a rock is a rock. A dollar is a dollar. Everything has its value because I don't need a rock as much because I've got a pile of rocks back there. Doesn't mean that someone doesn't need this rock and they're going to give me something of equivalent value. The Winnipeg Jets setting themselves up to handle this extremely well.
You bet. And Brad Lambert, we've had limited dealings with Brad. Brad's a good person. We know he works hard. He's got skill. He's got speed. But right now, if I'm Brad Lambert, my advice for Brad Lambert, if I were his representative, and I know that I'm not, and having covered the American League for a decade, Brad needs to go down and dominate with the Manitoba Moose, whether he wants to be with the Jets or if he wants to be traded. Scott Arniel is very, he's pro player, no doubt, Sean. He also coached in the American Hockey League on a team that went to the Calder Cup final. So he's dealt with top prospects who are wondering why they're not regulars in the NHL and things of that nature also. So he feels for them, but he also knows the other side of it. And for Brad, last year, he had a tough year offensively. It's not only about offense, but he didn't have a good year. He had 7 goals in the American League level. Year before, all-star, all-rookie, all everything. But Brad needs to elevate his game. We know he's had a position change. It's not easy to do. Sean, we talked about this privately in the preseason. Unfortunately for Brad, when there were opportunities early on, Brad did not put the pole in the ground and say, this job is mine. Unfortunately for him. And you can argue what you want, and they used other players, sure. But in training camp and in the limited opportunities that he had, there were some flashes for sure. But neither Brad nor Nikita Chibrikov put their pole in the ground and said, this is my job, and you can't take it from me. So right now, the best thing for Brad, and again, leaks happen. We understand usually they're strategic, but if you're Brad, you need to dominate at the American Hockey League level. The Jets aren't going to penalize him for this coming out. They want him to succeed. Brad needs to succeed by playing well. I think he can do that. So anyways, I think it'll be interesting to see how it unfolds. Sean, you brought up a great example. Logan Stanley 1 year at the deadline, it leaked out that he wanted out. Jets didn't trade him. Now he's on their third pairing. So Brad is a guy that can be comfortably a middle 6 forward with speed. Probably makes more sense on a scoring line than a checking line right now, unfortunately for Brad, because he's still working on his defensive side of the game. There's no doubt that he has NHL speed and he has the ability to put the puck in the net. He got his first NHL goal, showed some signs of that, but there hasn't been a consistent enough or dominant enough stretch for Brad to say, I can be a top 6 player right now on a Stanley Cup contender. So he needs to change the narrative around that. It's up to him.
First off, I just wanted to say a couple of things here. Kenny's water bottle. Kenny has so many receipts. His wallet is crazier than George Costanza's. Good to have you back, Kenny's water bottle. Good rebound after falling flat on your face earlier in the show. And then secondly, Beer League says it doesn't help Lambert's value and ultimately his chances of being traded when his agent is advertising he wants out. Other GMs will lowball us. This is a really, really good comment here because this is if you're Brad Lambert's agent, you have to think, is this a good strategy? Now, actually, there's room for a conversation on this, Ken. I think what it does force is it forces the idea of going out and maybe the Jets get something out of this. I'll be honest, Ken, in a situation like this, as much as it's out there, by the Winnipeg Jets, I think the Jets are okay with the idea of potentially moving on from Brad Lambert. Like the fact that we know about this, the fact that they're talking about it openly, I think what this means is that if you went out and you found a good trade and they got something back, the Jets would be open to saying, hey, go check out greener pastures, kids. We actually think that we'd maybe like to jostle things and get a different look in our prospect pool. This is an interesting one, but for the most part, if you're the agent here in this situation, you've watched how the Winnipeg Jets have worked in the past. Like in the end, Rutger McGroarty's agent got him out, right? And that's what Rutger McGroarty wanted. Yeah. So, and in this case, I think the worry that the agent is going to create a scenario by which the other GMs will lowball them. I think other GMs have learned from trying to pry Rutger McGroarty out from the Jets for nothing that the Jets just don't play that game. So I don't think this is as much of a worry as Beer League needs to worry about it. Ken, I want to get to, this is one of these things where we've got conversations just all around. We've barely touched on the game. Reminds me of having that big old do-rag all the way around my head as Sean's headband is about to make this a Sean's headband version of the Kenny and Renny show. Let's do it. Total aside here, Ken, entirely different direction. I think that Gabe Vilardi is a watcher of the KNR show. And you want to know what makes me think that is that he's now asked you and asked me when we've asked him a question. He's stopped to ask us what we think about it. I think he's so hooked on our analysis that he can't even get through his scrums without wanting to know what we think about the whole situation. I just, folks, you should go check it out. It was another one of those times where Gabe Vilardi got questioned by one of the two of us here and turned around and said, well, I don't know. What were you seeing out there? So anyways, like I said last time, I love it when he does that. Just like you're going to love Myers Drugs if you head down there and give them a visit. Make sure you tell them Kenny and Renny sent you. They've got all your pharmaceutical needs, all your supplement needs, and all your health food needs. And of course, if you can't make it down there, don't worry. Hop on the phone, give them a call. They deliver anywhere in the city. So go check them out. Doing a great job there at Myers Drugs. Okay, Ken, actually, I'd like you to give Sweet Lou Furlan a shout out before we move on.
You bet. For folks who have realty needs you'd like to have met, contact Lou Furlan at Royal LePage Dynamic Realty, 204-791-9971, or at the office, 204-989-5000. His email is lou@loufurlan.ca. That's LOU at LOUFURLAN.ca. Lou Furlan, excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of the community, including this podcast.
Yeah, here we go. T. Will says, get Vilardi on the show. He'll ask Kenny the hard questions, his own questions. Good stuff.
Outstanding. Well, T. Will misses us. He'd like a live event. That's what I hear from that.
No doubt.
What do you see, T. Will? What do you see? What do you see in the scrums?
I asked him that question once. I asked him that question once. I got backed into a wall for about 4 hours. It was crazy. We can't do that.
Tremendous.
Just letting people know it's going to end up going long here tonight because we're just getting to talking about Adam Lowry, which is a topic that deserves a lot of time. So, Adam Lowry signs an extension, 5 years. Loved the way he talked about it and joked about his agent where he said, I don't know, just get me signed back in Winnipeg. And his agent's like, Adam, that's not really the best negotiation strategy. But just another player now. So now add it to the list. Neil Pionk comes here. He doesn't want to leave. He doesn't want to go anywhere else. Yep. Mark Scheifele, Kyle Connor, just before this. Connor Hellebuck, the Hart Trophy winner. And like, put it this way, you want to talk receipts. Put this receipt in your wallet. Josh Morrissey is going to do the exact same thing. Just your thoughts on the importance of that signing. Nikolaj Ehlers weighed in on it. The importance of that signing for the Winnipeg Jets on top of all of the other signings where guys just can't seem to get enough of Winnipeg. Alex Iafallo, we never added onto that list.
Yeah, and even Vladislav Nemestikov extending.
Colin Miller.
Niederreiter. There's a
Nemestikov, Fleury.
List.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, this is a massive signing. I mean, it made me think, obviously, of the last time Adam Lowry signed an extension before GMs around the league were drooling, and we had Elliot on, and Elliot Friedman was saying how GMs were texting him to say that you got to be wrong on this one, right? I mean, they can't be right. Yeah. I mean, Lowry signed for 3.25, and people were prepared to go to 4 or higher. So, I mean, some folks are naturally looking at age and saying, oh, well, 5 years at 33 years old, this can't age well. Well, again, the Jets have already got a long line of guys that are pulling a Benjamin Button, reverse aging, still getting better in their 30s. Adam Lowry, I think, is one of those players in a lot of ways. Yes, he plays a heavy-duty system, a rugged style that, folks think naturally the decline is going to happen precipitously. Adam still looks like he's getting better to me. Now, see what happens in those last 2 years. But for me, even if Adam Lowry is a, 2B or a third line checking line player for 3 or 4 of those 5 years, it's still potentially a successful deal in a lot of fronts. If the Jets put up a banner, it won't matter at all. It's going to be a home run. But to me, Lowry is going to have value throughout the 5 years of the contract, even if that value is as a penalty killer and a fourth line player in the last, whatever it is, a year or two. But for me, this guy is a heart and soul piece. We've applauded him for his leadership style, and this is just an outstanding deal. I mean, we don't like to dig too deep into the numbers, but he's basically taking up less than basically 4% of the cap. And, he's definitely worth more than 4% of the cap given the role that he plays, Sean, right? Never mind the physical nature or the offensive secondary scoring, play driving, penalty killing, rugged nature. Also, some people may or may not like it, but his willingness to drop the gloves when necessary. But this guy always puts his teammates first. He did it in this own negotiation. Kyle Connor was going to get his deal first. Adam Lowry pointed that out when he spoke for the first time after his recovery was underway, and we knew he wouldn't be in the Jets training camp this year. So for me, this is whether you want to call it a ground rule double or a home run, either way, the Jets tied up another important piece, locked him up. And this is a guy that embodies the city he plays in, the province he lives in, and, he represents everything the organization, the Jets organization, wants to embody. That's how I see it. Terry Trey, great way to put it. He's a throwback.
This is something that's, and it's one of these things I shouldn't be doing as a journalist because I'm just going to be giving it away to other people. But what I'd sure like to do is have a conversation just one-on-one with Lowry and grab some comments for the upcoming broadcast. We've got Wednesday night hockey next week against the Washington Capitals, and then Saturday night hockey night in Canada game against the Nashville Predators, and then the following Wednesday against Montreal. You know what I think would be fascinating, Ken, because I personally think, and I think Adam Lowry knows that he's a player that time and time again has left money on the table, right, to stay in Winnipeg. And there's a couple things at play here. Like Adam Lowry's dad was an NHL player, right? So Adam knows what it's like to go from city to city to city with his dad, right? I wonder what effect that has on the decisions that he's made to become a lifelong Winnipeg Jet. The other part about that is his dad was a hockey player, so he made good money. Adam Lowry grew up in a family that had good money, right? And it seems to have, allowed him to understand money in a way that he understands what he needs and doesn't seem to be a guy who goes clamoring for more. So I'd actually be really fascinated to hear some of the conversations that maybe Adam and Dave Lowry have had and how that colors the way that Adam has negotiated his contracts. Because Adam is an extremely humble guy, humble to the point of leaving the money on the table that I personally believe he's loved. Like you'd said about how much he's taking up, Ken, his value clearly far exceeds out that, and his value for what he gets paid has clearly superseded what he's been doing since the 2015 playoffs, when you saw him go in and be like this young man who went against this ferocious Anaheim Ducks team and was just absolutely unbelievable in that series. So there's some interesting conversations to be had there. I do have to make the point, Ken, that I was making with you. The Lowry signing, it has to be done. The Kyle Connor signing, I told you, I think it's going to be unbelievable value. The Gabe Vilardi signing, brilliant. Kyle Connor, Mark Scheifele, Connor Hellebuck, those are steals of deals. Neil Pionk, over and over again. If you look at them, and I said this, so Ken and I were talking back and forth about Lowry, and I'd said, yes, if you look at it, every single one of these deals makes sense. The interesting part of this for me is when you're starting to look at guys like Mark Scheifele and Adam Lowry and Connor Hellebuck, who stretch all the way back to 2011 with this organization. Then Josh Morrissey comes shortly afterwards. And then Kyle Connor's the newbie. In 2015, he's with the team and not playing with the team by 2017. This, in the end, the one thing that I can't square away with this is the Winnipeg Jets have locked down, and not just doubled down, they've tripled down, they've quadrupled down. And if I knew what it was, what the word was to go 5 times down on something, I would say it. I just don't know what the word is right now. But the Winnipeg Jets have shown an insane amount of faith in a core that has not shown itself to be a core that gets things done at the most important time of the year. Now, so we go back and they've got 2 series victories in 2018. And they've got a series victory against the Edmonton Oilers in the bubble. And then they've got a series victory last year, the hockey gods victory in my mind against the St. Louis Blues. So for me, Ken, this is a group now that the Winnipeg Jets, by the time it's all said and done, have made a 2-decade show of faith to, a bet on, that they're going to get to that ultimate place. And Ken, I'll ask you this. In hockey, in football, in baseball, in basketball, in soccer, in any sport, I actually think this is truly unique. Has there ever been, Ken, has there ever been an organization that made as long a bet on a core that has really like amazing things? President's Trophy, Hart Trophy, Vezina trophies, Lady Byng trophies, a defenseman who's just waiting or nipping on the heels of the Norris Trophy winners. Like there's so much that this team has done. And years from now, 20 years from now, people are going to look back on this era of the Jets and be like, oh my goodness, what a team. And they'll remember those trophies and all those different kind of things. But I'm trying to think in sports of a team that hasn't changed course. Like here's a perfect example. Like even the Florida Panthers, who the Jets, Scott Arniel talked about, hey, they went out and they won the President's Trophy. And then they went out the next year and they made it to the Stanley Cup final. And then the year after that, they won it all. And the year after that, they won it all again, right? But it's a little bit of an apples and oranges, because what happened in that year after they won the President's Trophy, and then the next year, they took their top scoring player and traded him away along with their top defenseman at the time for Calgary's top player. And they changed the mix, is what they did. They tried something different. The Winnipeg Jets, they don't roll like that, and I don't see it happening, Ken. I don't see the Winnipeg Jets, if things don't turn out their way next year, saying, you know what, we're going to go trade Kyle Connor and see what happens if we trade him for this player or whatever. I'm not even going to entertain any names or anything like that. But I just get back to the idea that I don't think I've ever seen such a strong show of faith by an organization in any sport that I can think of for a group that has struggled the way this group has in the postseason when it matters most.
Yeah, I mean, San Jose Sharks maybe are close, but they also made the Cup final in 2016. They had, some second round success, but that would be the closest that I can find off the top of my head.
Like the 80s St. Louis Blues, but even those teams went to the conference finals like on multiple occasions, and like you said, Stanley Cup final for the San Jose Sharks. So
yeah, and I mean,
yeah, go on.
But they also got the crap beaten out of them by St. Louis, and then got steamrolled by Pittsburgh, right? I mean, that was the best year that they had. They were knocked out essentially, and the Jets know this because that's what happened to them last spring, right? Essentially, the physical nature was too much for them and again, Sidney Crosby and company, yes, but their best team didn't win. But Doug Wilson invested in the core similarly to the way Kevin Cheveldayoff has. And I mean, for me, Sean, I mean, I understand 100% where you're coming from, but I think that it was a perfect storm for the Panthers, because Matthew Tkachuk wanted out of Calgary. So
right.
So to me, there would have to be something in reverse here, right? I don't think it would be Hellebuck or Connor demanding to be out. They would have to have someone that wanted to come here, essentially. Man, I've banned this guy 19
me too.
times.
So just to give people what's going on, like clearly that's a spam bot. So like, don't take it to heart. Otherwise you'd be arguing with the computer. So you don't need to do that. Arguing with strangers on the internet is bad enough. Arguing with an algorithm is the worst kind of thing here. What happened in this is usually Renny is the one who sets up the feed. Kenny set it up so that there's a double feed on YouTube, and the one over here is inviting in the bots. I don't know how to stop it, folks. So
Thank
sorry
you,
that
I have blocked it.
That. We've blocked it over and over again. I know some people were asking for that. If you don't take it to heart, folks, I think bald is beautiful, especially with this guy over here. So I wouldn't worry about it. I'm not worried about it. I know this guy knows his value, and he's not worried about it either. And you all know his value as well out there, folks.
Beer League for the win. Here you go. Sean agrees.
Well, I honestly, I do. I gotta say it. I shot my shot. To make sure that I washed my hands of it. And you folks can shoot for growth with Cambrian Wealth. Grow your wealth today to reach tomorrow's big goals. Cambrian's wealth team can assist. Invest in your future self your way. Our pals at Cambrian Wealth give straight up investing advice you can actually understand and help you make a strong financial play to get there. Book an appointment at cambrian.mb.ca to do so. And Ken, I'm kind of getting a little bit excited. I'm about 2 months out from going and renegotiating my mortgage with the fine folks at Cambrian. I will do so down at the Henderson branch. Anyone, like I said, if I'm heading down to Toyota, if I'm going down to Cambrian, you're all welcome to join me. I got to go see Frankie and the boys. You know, I'm not sure if I want everyone down there because I kind of like to have Frankie and the boys all to myself. You know, I kind of like to be pampered.
Yeah, that's right.
You know?
I'm going to come actually to spoil the party. I need some shirts.
You should come along.
I need some shirts. I don't
with me.
The suits I got 4 last spring, but I need a few more shirts.
We're going to make it a K&R party down there.
Perfect.
Exactly. Okay.
Sorry, quickly, this is a counter to Nick's point, which is 100% valid. The reason they are doubling down on these players is because they don't have suitable replacements in the organizational depth chart, and they have trouble bringing in number one goalies, top line center, top line winger, one of the best checking line centers in the league. So, and they much like Doug Wilson in the San Jose Sharks, they believe that core group can win eventually. That's why they keep making this investment in them. Now, that's up to them to show that. And they know it. Adam talked about it openly today.
Yeah, I keep looking at this and saying, and Nick Lynham is saying absolute truths here. If 6 years from now, when Mark Scheifele and Connor Hellebuck and Adam Lowry are all in their late 30s, and Father Time is going to eventually catch up with these players, and it would be unfathomable to think that 6 years from now, those 3 players would all be operating in a way that age hadn't somewhat caught up with them. It would be crazy to think that. And if there aren't, I mean, I guess I have to wonder what would we look at and say it was a success? Or are we already there? Because like I said, I know enough about Winnipeg, and I know enough what it was like to grow up in Manitoba and near Winnipeg in the 80s, and how much people loved those 80s teams. And I think, for a lot of people, it was enough that the Dale Hawerchuk Winnipeg Jets were that team that just couldn't get past the Edmonton Oilers, right? Like maybe it's enough to win the President's Trophy. Maybe this whole time it's all about this. I'm not saying the Winnipeg Jets aren't trying to win a Stanley Cup, but their playoff results, no one can deny it. Their playoff results have not been where they want them to be, or where you would expect them to be based on how they've been able to perform in the regular season. But maybe just keeping good people who play really great hockey and really entertaining hockey and win National Hockey League trophies and win major accolades, maybe that's going to be enough by the time it's all said and done. I still contest. I have never, ever in sports seen as long a bet as the Winnipeg Jets have made on this core, on a core that has just really, outside of 2018, where I've said this before, I think the Winnipeg Jets were the best team in the NHL and should have won the Stanley Cup this year. Outside of that year, there really hasn't been a lot to write home about when it comes to playoff success. And yet the Jets keep saying, well, then it'll be this year. Well, then it'll be this year. Well, then it'll be this year. I hope I've got the same patience with Renny Jr. and Renny Jr. Sr. Because that's having that kind of faith in people. I do think it's special. It's also something that they could be criticized heavily for by the time it's all said and done. Ken, time to get to exactly what you said. The Johnson Group, we've got you covered play of the game, and I think, Ken, that this one is an all-timer. I think it's the greatest we've got you covered play in the history of the Kenny and Renny OGs. Johnson Group got you covered play of the game. You take it away.
Yeah, I mean, so I mentioned the Ehlers tribute video and standing ovation earlier. On the next shift, in vintage Ehlers fashion, he unloads a shot that goes off the pad of Comrie, goes up in the air, and is going into the net. And Dylan DeMello, absolutely, Josh Donaldson, 2016 AL MVP, specials it, knocking it right out of the air. I mean, maybe I should have used a Springer Dinger Vladdy reference for the Blue Jays, but just an incredible play. Robbed a sure goal. There's no other way to put it.
The baseball analogy is perfect, not just because he bats it out of the air, but Ken, it's so far ahead of him that he needs to put his hands together to get far enough to reach it. Yes. Like think about this, folks. I don't know if you've ever been on the ice and seen how hard it is to break up plays and knock pucks out of the air, but never mind having to reverse the direction of a puck that is going away from you into a net at the most crucial time and hit it in a manner that it goes straight away from the net. In order to him to just reach the puck, he's got to choke up. No, sorry, not choke up, the reverse of choke up. He's got to go all the way down to the bottom of the bat and bats it out there. Ken, I felt I was driving home and I honestly thought to myself, I need to go. You probably do as well. In fact, everyone who is in that scrum needs to go and apologize to Dylan DeMello because not one of us asked him about it.
No, he was asked.
The game.
I saw it it was in the quote loop. Yep.
Okay.
Sorry. No.
All right. Good. It was never mind.
I got there at the end. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry. Here the quote is. Let's go to Dylan DeMello. Sorry. Just give me. Oh, sorry. It was actually, what did Comrie say to you when you batted the puck out of the air? Well, he was saying, nice save. I was saying it was the least I can do for all the saves, all the times you saved my back. Yeah. Desperation play. And I was lucky to hit it pretty flush. That looked like a guy who's taken a few ABs to me in his time.
No doubt. I'll say this again. I don't think Neil Pionk, I guess, is the closest thing they would have after that. I've said this time and again. Dylan DeMello steals goals from the opposition because his never say die attitude and his compete level. He's so good at collapsing down around the net and stopping pucks that get behind Connor Hellebuck or whatever goal he is in from getting into the net. And that's just another example of a guy who never gives up on a play. Unbelievable stuff. And that, of course, is the Kenny and Renny OGs, the Johnson Group got you covered play of the game. And hey, do you run a small business in Canada? If you do, you need to look to Canada's #1 employee benefits plan, Chambers Plan, to give you a competitive edge. Chambers Plan is the simple, stable, smart choice for over 30,000 businesses countrywide. Visit chamberplan.ca where you will be able to learn more. And Ken, that brings us to our hashtag the keg save of the game. What do you got?
Yeah, I can't find one that was a better save than the Seth Jarvis 1T on the power play. I think that was, again, we've talked a lot about the time spent between Connor Hellebuck and Eric Comrie and the time they spent in the video room, which is not common for a lot of #1 workhorses to have the backup in those rooms with their goalie coach, which in this case is Wade Flaherty. But Eric Comrie made this look like a kind of big and boring save. He gets across and makes just a ridiculous stop look routine. And I don't think it was routine, which is why he's getting the award from the keg today.
I'm glad you said that because I was going to say it doesn't look big and boring because let's just be honest, he's not as big as Connor Hellebuyck.
Sorry, he's
Connor
athletic.
Hellebuyck is a huge human being, but what is equal is the idea that it still looks boring to him. Like he steps out and like steps
Great job
in
of checking out of the side of the crease.
Yes,
Challenging.
anticipates and then reacts with the blocker. Like that is an unbelievable shot. And he not only reacts with the blocker, but he does so, you can tell, instinctually redirecting the puck into a spot where it's not a problem, right? Like it doesn't hit him and pop up in the air and ends up being like a 10, like 5-alarm fire in the crease, and it doesn't end up falling right in front of him and someone whacking it. It's like the Jets broke down right there. They broke down in their coverage. And when you break down in coverage, now you're scrambling. Unless your goaltender redirects a puck that heads off into the corner, and now everyone's got time to get back. So not only does he save a goal that looked to me like it was going to be a sure goal, but he then buys the rest of his teammate time to get their legs back underneath him. I thought it was just an absolutely brilliant save and a great example of a guy that's very capable also in the Winnipeg Jets system. That's for me and for Ken, our hashtag the keg save of the game. It doesn't matter what we think, though. It matters what you think. Share with us here. Hashtag the keg save of the game. You're automatically entered to win a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg. Each location finer than the last. And that brings us to our winner from last show. That would be Ron Lots. Ron, you know what to do. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name. Send me an email. I will have the fine folks at the keg send you a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg. Each location finer than the last. Ken, before we go, I've started to see this. There's a lot of people who are starting to have conversations. I saw it earlier on, talk about moving Morgan Barron up to the second line, moving Jonathan Toews down to the fourth line. Jonathan Toews was that close to scoring the tying goal in this game. He'd had some opportunities. He's around it, but the puck isn't getting into the back of the net for Jonathan Toews. I wanted to ask you the question this way so it doesn't become repetitive. And I think it's a different way of looking at this situation. Where Jonathan Toews has been right now, I wonder if you would rank for me what you think is the Winnipeg Jets in order of importance this year. And we can start at Connor Hellebuyck because you already said that. But give me an idea where you think Jonathan Toews ranks so far this year in order of importance for the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's still an incomplete grade for me. But what I would do,
not a grade. I want to go down the list. So Connor Hellebuyck is probably the most important person to the Winnipeg Jets. Josh Morrissey, I think is right there with Mark Scheifele for second. Scheifele second, third. Kyle Connor is probably fourth. We're looking in that area there because he's on the top line, because he's scoring. We're looking at Gabe Vilardi's probably 5. Adam Lowry coming in is around 6. We're looking at a guy like Neil Pionk, the way he's played, around 7. Dylan Sandberg coming in is probably around 8th or 9th. And then we start getting into the idea of guys like right now, has Nino Niederreiter shown better so far? Has
12 points. Yeah, I mean, he's shown better offensively, certainly.
So I guess it's a way of saying at this stage, I know there's a different place to go, but I guess it is our job at some point to analyze and to gauge where we think this is going. And I know that you think the best is yet to come and there's time for him to grow, and there clearly is. I think around the game 10 mark, there's been a little bit of a plateau with Jonathan Toews. And I guess for me, I thought the way of looking at this right now is Jonathan Toews for me is around the 10, 11, 12th in importance for the Winnipeg Jets so far this season. And sure. I wonder if that's enough. And maybe more so, I wonder if for Jonathan Toews being the 10th to 12th most important player on any team that he's been on would be something that he would be accepting of or okay with.
Well, I mean, Yeah, I mean, right now he's the 9th or 10th most important forward on the team. I mean, that's
Not
in
not
terms of
forward. I don't know
production.
about forward, but on the team, on the roster, like maybe Perfetti's got to go ahead of him as well. I have a Perfetti ahead of him
He's
on
barely
my
played,
list.
but yeah, I mean, but he's got to be. They were expecting him to be better. I mean, again, I would just put it this way: I would, in terms of changes, I would put Morgan Barron's speed on that line with Taves and Perfetti. I would put Vladislav Nemestikov in the 4C role, even though I understand he's got 6 goals and 7 points, and that's okay. That's a great start for him. But I would give it a lot more rope before I would pull the pin on the experiment of him not being able to handle a middle 6 role. And we saw it today. Adam Lowry went into the 2 hole, and that line played well.
Yeah. That's one thing I think we got to do before we go. The line changes. I actually found some of the most intriguing line blending that I've seen from a Winnipeg Jets coach, period. Quite honestly, Ken, like I thought there was a different level of creativity to that really hasn't existed, especially going back to the Paul Maurice days, which, you could very much see Paul Maurice's line blends were basically a way to say to the players, you know what, hopefully this will shake you up before I put everything right back where it was. The line changes that you saw today, do you think there's anything in those line changes that have some legs?
I mean, I would give it some, an opportunity, but I also think that I want to see more of Taves and Perfetti. But again, we talked about this on the flip side with Ehlers. We thought Ehlers would be a great fit with Aho and Jarvis. It didn't work. He looks great with Stankoven and Blake. So, I mean, maybe Taves will click more with Niederreiter. I mean, it's 100% possible. But I would try, like I said, if we're going to make change, I liked what I saw in the changes for sure in the third. I thought Gus Nyquist showed a little bit more.
Yep.
Again, Nyquist and Taves was also something we wondered about. So I would also be open to seeing Barron, Nyquist, and Perfetti, or sorry, Taves, Barron, Taves, and Perfetti as an option, or who knows? I mean, they've got lots of things that they can try still. But yeah, I mean, I think we'll see those lines against the Minnesota Wild on Sunday. That's what I think. But we could show up in the morning for practice, and he goes back to what we saw today.
So I think we should see those lines again. Like I liked what I saw from them, and it is hard. I don't know if you picked up on what Scott O'Neill was saying about how the Carolina Hurricanes played that third period, or if you draw the same inference. I don't think it was much of an inference. He basically, when the question was being asked about how the Jets pushed in that third period, he said, well, sometimes that has something to do with the other team, is essentially what he said. And I thought personally the Carolina Hurricanes stopped trying to trap the Jets in their own zone and just started trying to defend up ice, letting them come out, which led to the kind of domination that we saw from the Jets in the third period, and everything but getting back onto the scoreboard. But I'll say this. I thought Nyquist on the fourth line was a problem. I don't think that is where I don't think he fits there, and I don't think that he gives you more in that spot than a guy like Pearson or Koepke, who are flopping in and out of the lineup to make space for Nyquist. So I think what we saw in that situation there was an attempt to kind of rediscover what they were trying to earlier on with Nyquist and Taves, in that you've got two guys who think their way through the game. Maybe you can kind of find something there. And just I thought Cole Perfetti reacted really, really well to playing alongside Adam Lowry, and putting Nemesnikov. It was Nemesnikov who went on that line as well, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, and putting Nemesnikov in that spot made sense to me, because there was, and it's one of the reasons why we thought it was going to work, because Taves and Nemesnikov was working. Last year, Perfetti and Nemesnikov worked. That should work, right? Well, it hasn't really worked, especially in, production the way we've thought so. So you take that Nemesnikov and Perfetti kind of, I don't want to call it magic. That's an over-exaggeration. But you take that kind of spark that they had last year, and you add Adam Lowry, who I think just the honesty of the way he plays gets the best version of whatever player he's playing with. I want to see more of that. I thought that was very, very interesting. I thought that you got as much out of Jonathan Toews with Nyquist and Niederreiter as you have out of a line that Jonathan Toews has played on so far. And to be honest, I think, a lot of Niederreiter's early success did come alongside Jonathan Toews as well. So I think going back to that and trying to rediscover something like that helps. And then you kind of get the third line back to being, because I'll say this, Morgan Barron at the beginning of the year, he was absolutely unbelievable. That kind of pressure that line is supposed to play, I don't think they were achieving that with Nyquist on that line. So I think you potentially have the ability to unlock Barron and get back to what he was doing at the beginning of the year if you go with that. So I got to say this, I'm glad he didn't touch the top line, Scott Arniel, because I thought the top line was pushing it. Again, it's another game, like I said last game, it's not them sitting back and capitalizing on mistakes. It's the top line going out and pushing and generating. They should have been left alone because they were great. The rest of it, I want to see more.
Yeah, for sure. And Sean, I don't want to bring this up, but it was so reminiscent of that Dallas game where Carolina just kept flipping pucks into the neutral zone. And we know what the reaction from Pete DeBoer was, but I couldn't help but think of that.
Yeah.
Because of the style.
Yes, no, it was the same thing. You're just flipping the puck straight up. Don't be trying to coach the coach. Don't out coach the coach, Ken. You know where that gets you.
It
gets you a verbal spanking in front of all your peers.
I'm a fan of Pete DeBoer, except how he handled that situation.
Oh, I'm totally okay with how he handled that situation. Anyways, hey, Dallas Paul says Sean Reynolds Friday
Happy
was
birthday,
my birthday.
Dallas.
Happy birthday, buddy. Hey,
right on.
At the beginning when we did this show, people used to do this kind of stuff all the time. Let's get back
I love
to
it.
Birthday shout out, folks. It's good stuff. We love hope it was a good one for you, Dallas. And hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend, because Kenny and we've gone long. This feels like the early years of KNR where we just couldn't get enough of talking.
We made it past midnight.
That's good stuff. We enjoyed it. We hope you enjoyed it too, folks. And if you did, we hope you appreciate the conversations going on in this space. And if you do, we hope you appreciate the conversations made by our sponsors who fight to keep the conversation going in this space. For us, that's Jim Pattison Toyota on Regent, Vittorio Rossi, Cambrian Credit Union, Pristine Roofing, Sweet Lou Furlan, Flame and Comfort, Myers Drugs, the Kenny and Renny OGs and the Johnson Group, and of course, the Keg. Thank you to them. Thank you to all of you folks. Let's reconvene. What a big game it is on Sunday, Ken.
Red hot.
The Wild, who, I think a lot of people counted out earlier on in the year.
They didn't
now
look
2
good.
points up on the Winnipeg Jets. Yes, they've got 2 games in hand, so let's not anybody panic. But I was on CJOB with Cam at noon, and I was asked about this road stand and what I thought success would be in these 3 games. And I'd said, well, probably 2 out of 3, but I think one of those 2 has to be against the Minnesota Wild, because they're coming. Right. This is one of those swing games, and the Jets usually perform really good in these swing games. But you talk about going down 4 points, and you've got 2 games in hand, but there's a little bit of separation there, or you even things up and you got 2 games in hand and you spit those guys back down to 8th or 9th place, wherever it goes. Huge game on Sunday. I'm looking forward to it. Also, for Take Your Kids to Work Day, I'm taking Renny Jr. and Renny Jr. Sr. are both coming along. I'm going to make them dominate the scrum, Ken. They're going to ask all the questions, or else they're going to get a talking to when they get home. That's it for us, folks. Enjoy your weekend.
I'll be encouraging you. Don't worry, kids. Don't worry.
Ken, they know Ken's the nice guy. They know Dad's the bad guy and Ken's the nice guy. And we'll see it on Sunday when the Winnipeg Jets play the Minnesota Wild. Talk to you then, folks. It was great to see you.